coming up on Mic'd Up.
People say that freelancing isn't really that stable, and I think it's the most stable job you'll ever have because it'll always be there. Whether you need per diem, part-time, full-time, it's always there. You know, you can't say that about corporate America.
Welcome to Mic'd Up. I'm your host, Mike DeChocho, and on my show, I interview entrepreneurs, award-winning authors, entertainers, business leaders, athletes, and other talented individuals who I personally invited to join the show to inspire you to be brave and bold in pursuit of your dreams. If you dig this show and are looking for more inspiring content from incredible people, click the subscribe button and you'll be notified of each episode release. Subscribing is free and it means the world to me that you've chosen my channel to tune into. You can give a gift of thanks and appreciation for providing this content to you. Simply visit patreon.com/mikedup, MIKEDUP. Any amount is greatly appreciated and totally unexpected. I welcome you to connect with me on my other social channels as well. All links are clickable in the description to make it even easier to connect. Thank you again for tuning into Mic'd Up. Enjoy the show. Our guest today is a superstar freelancer, entrepreneur, and community builder. She's been featured in Authority Magazine, Thrive Global, the Buffalo News, and other local publications. She is overflowing with Buffalo love. In 2019, she was voted most aspirational freelancer by the Freelance Conference. Welcome to the show, the founder of Convergence Coworking, Freelance, Buffalo and Beyond, a proud mama of two, my friend, Rachelle.
Hey, Mike. What a title. I really appreciate that.
No problem. Hey, as you know, off camera, we cut that thing down. We said, we're going to talk about a lot of these pieces of who Marie is. There's so many different things that you're doing that I'm excited to talk about. A lot of it, which is really exciting, is happening after we record this. We're going to be setting up a lot of things going on locally. Anyone who's tuning in right now, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening, I want to make things super easy for you. So instead of listing off all of Marie's websites, her social media is clickable in the show notes. So we are ready to rock and roll. Are you ready?
Yep.
As I mentioned, we're going to cover a lot of ground, and most importantly, that you have an exciting week. We're going to cut right to the chase. Freelance, Buffalo and Beyond. It's coming up in April. Normally on this podcast on Mic'd Up, I try not to make it like an infomercial, but today I'm breaking some rules. I'm making an exception for you, Marie. Talk about Freelance, Buffalo and Beyond. Let's set that up and let's take it away from there.
That's awesome. I really appreciate you kind of bending the rules for me. I'll try to keep it less informational than anything. Freelance Buffalo was originally launched about 3 years ago. So this will be my 4th annual event. And I decided to tie in Rochester and Erie as well. And ultimately, I think the underlying story here that's really important is just building a community for freelancers. It didn't exist in 2019. It's starting to exist now, I would like to say. So this is a week-long event for freelancers to come together, to gather, to learn, to network, because otherwise we're really in our homes. And like you said, with carving out time uniquely, this is the only thing on my calendar today. And that's really awesome. So I get to stay home and work on the things that are coming up, the event and opening Convergence. So I'm really just happy to be here and get my day started in the right way.
Yeah, I want to make sure we don't overlook something that I mentioned in the bio, community builder. That's really a great title for you. It's something that you probably don't get a lot of credit for. People don't mention it. Like the word entrepreneur gets used so much now and all these other great things you're doing. But the thing with freelancers, I started off as a freelancer before I built really a team. I don't know if I still would consider Social Chameleon in the freelance space, but I certainly appreciate it. Started off as taking on one client. That's how everybody gets started. And you kind of do it in addition to what you're doing in everything else in your life. I kind of chose to take I need to walk away from my corporate so I can focus on being an entrepreneur role. Some people do it where they're doing their business, having their family, and then they start a side hustle and they become a freelancer. But you're really bringing this community together, Marie. Like, I want you to know how important it is to not overlook the fact that it's not only Buffalo. Now you got Rochester, you got other cities. It's all throughout the states now, and really globally, you're connecting with people. And you're bringing us together because you're right. A lot of times it is a lonely place. As an entrepreneur and freelancer, both roles can get very lonely. If you don't have a board of directors, like a big business, if they have a problem, they sit down with 12 people in a boardroom, they hash it out. A lot of times the 12 people are the 12 different personalities we got going in our head.
I was like, that's just me.
You are not alone. And this is so amazing. And I've met so many great friends. And actually, I had an existing friendship with Jackie Roach. She's been a guest multiple times on Mic'd Up now. And hanging out with you last year brought us together even closer. And I feel like we've become closer since that event. So there you go. You're bringing people closer together. You're building relationships. You're giving a platform to people who have a great message. I want to say also thank you for inviting me to speak at this event.
Of course.
Speaking on podcasts. I'm really excited about that because I do feel I have a message that I can deliver to other freelancers, but also tie it to podcasting. It's going to really serve.
Absolutely. It'll be really interesting. And like you're saying, being a community builder isn't something that I recognize wholeheartedly, I don't think, because it's just who I am. I've been doing that since I was making friends on the playground and in elementary school. Kind of with something we cut out of my intro, community building and PR has actually been a natural thing that I've done my entire life. So I decided to quantify it and start monetizing that through events that help other people.
Were you always the kid that was throwing the birthday parties for everyone, like organizing events? Were you always really good at that?
Yeah, probably. So in elementary school, middle school was probably more of the bringing different cliques together. I went to a very small school, so I wasn't just a fan nerd or like really smart or a jock. I was all three of those things. So if I had a party, a birthday party or an outing, I would bring those different people together if they weren't already together in our super small town. But just people who aren't usually friends. And I thrive on that. I love that. I like finding people who don't know each other, maybe otherwise wouldn't have connected, and bringing them together and honestly blowing their minds, being like, wow, I don't know what I would do without this other person that I just met. So that really drives me. So, and all the other stuff is just extra.
Yeah. You wear many hats. It's like you hear that a lot, but in your case, it's absolutely true. We didn't even talk about half of them.
I call it living like a double life. And I know we're going to talk about parenting today. So I very much so feel like I live this double life, but I'm so blessed to have it.
You're someone who, if you were in a coffee shop, you could sit down and meet a mutual friend of our, Tony Watson. You know Tony, right?
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen Tony in a few years, so I hope he's doing well. And Tony, if you're watching this, hello. But he actually mentioned your name when him and I were meeting. And like if he mentioned you at that time, it was your business Be Active that you're doing the coaching and consulting at the time. And then if I sat down with you for coffee, 5 minutes later, another person could come up and be like, oh, she's running Freelance Week in Buffalo. 5 minutes later, another person could walk up. You just have so many different things going on. I think it's incredible.
I don't know if I want to say this on a podcast, but something intrigued me. I make an excellent spy.
She knows a little bit about everybody.
No, not even that. Just being able to, and I think that's more so a skill set, being able to morph to whatever the situation that you're in, right? So depending on who you're talking to, with Tony, we had a collaboration. We were working on a client together, and then other people know me from the co-working space. Other people know me from my writing background. It just depends on what part of my life you entered it, I guess, is where your depiction of me comes from.
You know, it's funny. I'm not trying to use this as a way to bring me up or the brand up, but that's exactly why I went with the name Social Chameleon for my company, is because we learn and adapt. And really, it was me, myself, and I in the beginning, learn and adapt and grow in our situation. So if I met with Tony, I'd sit down and give him the business in that particular way that felt comfortable for that situation. Then I might meet you or somebody a little different. And it's still the same material, but it's just the way we deliver it to people. You're excellent at that as well. Now, we talked about how you're wearing so many different hats. One of them I teased at the top is your mama bear to two growing children who are absolutely incredible. I look forward to meeting them at the events if they're hanging out at the events as well.
Yeah, we're going to have to make a kids room. Looks like.
But the panel that you asked me to speak on is doing it for the kids, right? We're hustling. We're doing the hard work. We're putting in the 12, 15-hour days for our kids to set them up for a better lifestyle. I know that's a big part of your why you do all this. I'd love to hear a little bit about how you do balance it, because at some point you have to have some kind of system or balance or rhyme or reason for being able to do all this. Can you speak to that?
Of course. I'm going to dive right in. It's a little personal, but I was married for 8 years and then unfortunately had to get divorced. But, that's life. There's a whole other story with that one. But I do not condone divorce by any means, but it helps to have that space. But at the same time, there's a whole other conversation about parenting and responsibilities and being able to grow as a young parent and, professionally and personally while also raising children. It's a whole thing. But in the situation that I'm in now, so I'm a single mom of two. My son is in elementary school. My daughter will be going to elementary school next year. I really do what I can to make the most of my time when they're not in my home. So whether that's they're with their father or they're at school with their friends, then it comes down to me. So when they're around, I come first health-wise, and then, I can take better care of them, but they're first. I'm getting milk, I'm making lunch, I'm making dinner, I'm making whatever. But then when they're not here, you need a buffer. So I'll sit down, I'll have a tea, I'll sit down, I'll watch a show. I need a buffer in between my time with them and my time with me. So then I can really sit down and, like you said, do like a 12-hour day. Today, after this, we're probably going to work until 10 o'clock at night, which is totally fine because I don't have them with me. And like you were saying, they're a part of my why. I want to build a legacy that my parents, I was adopted. So my parents were both small business owners. I saw how hard they worked, and, they inched their way forward to where they wanted me to be. And then I kind of picked up the baton, and now I'm inching forward even more to get my kids where I want them to be. It just so happens that I get to really love what I'm doing, to leave my children what I want to leave them.
Yeah. No, I think that's really well said. It's funny. We have a very similar situation. I was married for 6, close to 7 years, and had the divorce, and now have a situation where I have limited time with Isabel. And it's the same thing. When she is now with me, I am 1,000% in social chameleon mic'd up mode. When she's with me, it shifts. My team knows I'm available, but everybody's respectful of my time and know, like, okay, Mike's in dad mode right now, so he's going to get back to us as soon as he can. So it's really important to know what mode you're in, and then be great in that particular situation.
You've really got to clear your head, and you've got to be right with yourself to be able to balance things. So I think that was your initial question, is how do you balance things? And it's taking care of yourself first and foremost, and then really knowing what your priorities are. Sometimes I'll get off on tangents because there's so many different things going on. And I come back to something one of my coaches told me. It was, write down a list of your top 3. You really can only have one priority, but she said your top 3 priorities. And if it doesn't fall within those categories, you got to say no. I'm like, okay, I like that. That made my life so much easier. But finally, props to my kids, because they're amazing. My daughter's like, I want to work like you. She's like, when can I have a laptop? And I'm like, when you learn how to spell. And my son's always, asking, like, are we going to the co-working space? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, oh, I don't want to go. And I'm like, you want to make $20? Like, you can help me. And he's like, oh, okay. They start to get it. And they know that I balance things really well. They're very emotionally mature for their age, I'm grateful for that.
That is great. Yeah. It sounds like we have a lot of similarities with our kids too. That's awesome. I love to hear it. I love to hear that you are thriving in all aspects of life.
Yeah. I want other single parents with kids to know, like, they can do this. They say, oh, people are always worried about freelancing and having insurance, which is super important, but there are ways. People think that they need to live in a box to live a certain lifestyle. And then they look at me and go, I have no idea how you do it. It's really not that hard. You just have to know what you need to have and go for it. And I know that can sound a little pretentious, and I don't want it to come off that way. I just want it to come off in the sense that don't let the things that you feel are hurdles to you be that big. You can just step over them. There's people that can help you too. They're not alone.
Yeah, I would say this. If anyone wants to tune into that panel discussion, that's on April 20th. Do you remember the time? Is it 2:00?
2, I think.
2 p.m. And it's going to be a discussion. It's myself and a few other parents that are freelancer entrepreneurial roles. We're going to have this whole conversation. I'm really looking forward to getting all the different perspectives, but really well said, well articulated. Again, like you said, it's not something that you have it all figured out first and then you go into it. That just doesn't work that way. And plus, the other thing I want to say is everybody is different. So there is no right or wrong. The way that you're doing it is different than me, different than anybody else. But there's different things you found that worked for you. Like you said, you have your unwind time where you're sipping your tea and your kids know, like, okay, mommy needs a half hour and then she's going to dive all in and she's going to be all in, right? So everybody has that kind of dive in and then start to build this thing that seems
you figure it out.
Figure it out. Yeah.
For parents, not everyone listening to this podcast is going to be a parent, but it's kind of like college. I just thought of this. That's why it's taking me a second to pull it together. But having kids is kind of like college. Not everyone does it. It's not for everyone. The people who do it, maybe they did it because that's what they really wanted. Maybe they did it because that's the situation they were in their life. But either way, whatever way you flip it, you learn something. So I wanted to just mention that because I didn't want to lose any listeners that are like, I don't have kids. I don't want kids. It's kind of like going to college or not going to college. It's situational, and usually you come out better on the other side. So
yeah, I think that's a great point. And it's similar to college. Not everybody has to go at the same time. Like there's this thing when like you turn 18, you're supposed to go from 18 to 22. And if you have a master's degree or further, you're going to be in school until you're like 30, right? Well, we get all that, but not everybody's timeline is the same. So I think that's a beautiful thing to remember too. Hey, you brought up time, and I kind of had it in my notes. I didn't know if I was going to go here with it, but we recently sprung forward. We spring forward at this time. We lost the hour of sleep just a couple of days ago. What I want to do is actually go backwards for a second. I want to wind the clock back to little Marie, maybe like, 10, 12, 14. And you mentioned your parents were entrepreneurs. That's a story I didn't know. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that. But also, what did you have in store for yourself when you were younger and you're like, I want to do this? Did you have kind of some of these? I'd love to hear that.
I'm going to blow your mind. I wanted to be a large animal veterinarian.
Okay.
It's nothing to do with what I do now. But looking back at things, I was always a strong writer. I was always getting in trouble for talking and texting in class. And it's brilliant because I get paid to do those things now. So I guess it was there. I just didn't know that it was there yet. I hosted my first event when I was in college, like 18 or 19 years old. It was a fashion show fundraiser. At the time I was going to college, I did get my degree in business, but I was studying to do retail management, fashion, those kinds of things. I went from large animal veterinarian to wanting to go to FIT, so the Fashion Institute of Technology. I never really could figure out what I wanted to do. It's amazing that I'm doing what I'm doing now because I get to use those skills that I didn't know were being built so strong to do basically whatever I decide. I was telling my boyfriend the other day, I'm like, I want to host a fashion show next. I haven't done one in like 10 years or 6 years or so. In another life, I did those a lot and it was fun. So keep your eye out. Maybe we'll be doing one of those. Maybe we can do it with your new line. That would be awesome.
There it is. Yeah. Thank you.
That would be super fun.
Be great and be grateful. This is brand new and it's got the be great, be grateful thing. Super excited about that. And also I want to give a shout out to Rachelle, the founder of Indy 20. You're also connected with her.
She's one of my best friends. I love her.
Yeah.
Did you know that? I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that. Like I met her actually through Life Church Buffalo. We're both on the video production team and she was just rocking out some really cool stuff. And I was like, hey, do you have that in like unisex? It was the Indy 20 white sweatshirt. And it was a little tight on me. I'm like, I don't know if I'm comfortable wearing that in public. So I actually gifted it to a friend, but I love her brand. Like she's just got a really, really cool. What is Rachel's last name? It's slipping my
Sweeney.
Rachel
soon to
Sweeney.
Be Forte. So yes. That's going to be exciting. I can't wait to say it. I played a minor part in their introduction.
Did you really?
I love them. Yeah. Their anniversary is my birthday. But I do. I love them dearly. Great people.
Awesome people doing different fashion, whether it's just apparel merch, but also like more so. She's actually a fashion brand, which is really, really cool. So
she's so talented.
I would love to see that. You lit up when you were talking about doing the fashion week, and I can see.
It's fun.
Yeah, it brings you back to your passion, which is what it's all about. We're going to take a quick time out. We're going to take 2 minutes. We're talking about both of our sponsors, Social Chameleon and Navigating Your Books. We will be right back with Marie. Hey guys, it's Mike. I'd like to give a proper shout out to Navigator Bookkeeping. Look, for a long time, I ran my business without really understanding the full financial picture. I used my gut and my bank account balance to make decisions, which led to some poor choices and constant stress over my business's finances. I knew something needed to change. At the beginning of 2021, I made a decision that helped pave a more clear path for my business. I started working with Navigator Bookkeeping. Since then, my bookkeeping has been handled for me. I now understand the full financial story of my business, making important financial decisions much easier now, and it helps me plan for where my business is going. I highly recommend giving Navigator Bookkeeping an opportunity to help your business. Check them out at navigatingyourbooks.com. Again, that's navigatingyourbooks.com. It's time to know the full financial story of your business. Podcasting is a great way to engage with your audience and stay consistently relevant. The only problem is you don't have the time or desire to produce your own show. You simply want it done for you. And that's where Social Chameleon comes in. All you need to do is press record and upload the files. We'll handle the rest. From planning, production, post-production, distribution, and digital marketing, we have you covered. We realize that times are tough and funds are tight. And Social Chameleon believes in building supportive business relationships. By clicking on the link in this promo,
we'll provide you 7 free podcasting tips to get started, as well as a free 30-minute online consultation. This is the perfect opportunity for entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, industry experts, influencers, and anybody who has a personal brand. With Social Chameleon, we help you build a brand that is out of this world. We're ready and waiting, so what are you waiting for? Click on the link to get started today.
All right, we're back in action with Rachelle. Remember, you can connect with her on social media. All of her links are clickable in the show notes, as well as her websites, to make it super easy to connect. All right, Marie. So tell us a little bit about some of your early influences. It could be when you were younger, as you mentioned. You had your parents that were kind of entrepreneurial, but does not have to be them. Who did you look up to? Who are you like aspiring to be, whether it was athlete, musician? Where did that come from? Where did your influence come from?
It's a really good question. I mean, my parents, I probably would go back to them just because they both worked so hard. You know, my dad owned small businesses since he was 16 years old. Sold his first business before he was 18, and then worked in another business for a while, sold that because he had a dream of being a dairy farmer. He was ahead of his time, actually. He did it, I think, 20 years too early, but it was something he wanted to do. He wanted to buy 100 acres of land and raise cows and raise a kid on the farm, and that was my life. And then my mom, you know, she's always worked like 3 jobs. We didn't grow up rich or anything. I grew up out in the country where, you know, my parents, they'd have their regular jobs and they'd have a night job. And then my mom would clean houses on the side. My dad would sell hay. Like, they were always hustling. Like, my parents are freaking hustlers, man. I don't know if I could say that, but they were hustlers and I didn't really know it, you know, and I think they were hustlers because they had to be. Like, life is hard, right? And I'm learned that throughout my life. And they really just instilled it in me that you're doing one thing, that's totally fine, but that's just not how they raised me. You know, even growing up in that and then going to college, you know, it took me 50 minutes to go from my home to college. So I was like, you know, I had to get a job because my parents, you know, they didn't give me money or anything. So, you know, my day in college was get up, go to college from 8 to 2. And then I was already out there. I might as well work a job. So I worked from 3 to 9 or whatever it was. And then I went back home. So that's when I started learning efficiency, I think. If I didn't have a class that day, I wasn't working. And then I also had another job on one day. So I worked Sundays from 9 to 9 at a little diner in Springville, my favorite place ever. It was a cafe, I think, my favorite place of all time. So I had 3 jobs, school, the mall, and then, you know, working at Main Street. That was my life for 4 years while I was in college. And then Fridays were my day off. I didn't do anything on Fridays except for homework. And then I hang out with my friends because the other days of the week I was working. It's always been there, I think. So, and then growing up and, you know, living in the system, getting married, having kids, and then being like, oh, that's, you know, maybe not a great fit. You know, you can't return the kids, but, you know, you can morph the other parts of your life, you know, to kind of fit who you're growing into.
Yeah. Awesome. I didn't know that. Now, you mentioned growing up on the dairy farm, and that sounds like you were close to your parents, or at least appreciated them, which is kind of sometimes 2 different things. Your head nodding for both of those, which is great to hear. Where did you grow up?
Near Ellicottville.
Okay, so somewhat in the area. I wasn't sure. I didn't know if you moved to the Western New York region or if that's where it all started for you.
Been here since I was 9 months old. Came over from the Philippines and then stayed here, lived in Florida for a few years. I always come home. I love Buffalo. You get to come here and build something. We're a traditional city, but I always say that gives us so much more opportunity to build something. I'm not saying that I'll maybe be here forever, but it's definitely a good time to be here now.
Let's give Buffalo some love for a second. We teased that in the intro too. Buffalo love is an actual term here that came out a few years ago. Obviously, the play on the spelling of Buffalo and the word love kind of put together. But there is a special thing here that's created. It's a tight-knit group.
I don't have my buffaloes behind me. I have them in my living room now. There's uniquely painted buffaloes. So
very, very cool.
I'll have to get your viewers a picture of that because it's pretty cool.
A lot of people tuning in from the Buffalo area, so they won't be surprised to hear that. But for those that are tuning in that maybe only think of Buffalo as like the sports team that always has the letdown or whatever, we get it. We certainly know who we are as far as that.
Yeah, but we have Josh Allen. So
we're turning the corner. We got Josh Allen on our team, baby. But the city is like, they call it the city good neighbors for a reason. Even when someone grows up in this area and they leave, they could go to Florida, California, whatever, the Buffalo is still in their heart. The way they treat people in their new community that they're in is likely going to turn heads because it's like, oh, you actually care about us. You just showed up 5 minutes ago and you're helping us out. There's this special thing, and you certainly exude the Buffalo love, meaning the audience is like, what does that mean? It's that community thing again. It's taking care of your neighbor. It's helping someone out. It's you see an older woman down the street shoveling her driveway and she's struggling. You go and just take care of it for her. You're not looking for $20.
Her driveway will be plowed for the next.
It would most
3
likely
months.
be plowed for 3 months once somebody notices that she's out there. Like they would try to beat her to the punch. So there's a lot of that. A lot of times my neighbor beats me to do the sidewalk, and I usually get him on the second time it snows. Like he'll do the morning because he gets up way earlier than I do. And then if it snows again by like 2 p.m., I get the second shovel for him. And we're kind of like, all right, we got to.
I love that, and that's what I love about our city. And even, kind of coming back to Freelance Buffalo and beyond a little bit, I've had such tremendous success in the last 3 years hosting this event because of the community that we have. And as much as I love Rochester and I love Erie, I'm seeing differences in our openness to collaboration and kind of just coming across some hurdles that I didn't come across here. But I'm so happy. And I think this is the best service we can give to anyone else, is to help those cities or the people who want their city to be more communal to lead the way in that, because they're going to make their city uncomfortable, but that's their job, because if they want to lead the way and clear the path, it's going to be uncomfortable. I was just saying this to Madison, the organizer for Rochester, yesterday. It's going to feel kind of weird. You're going to feel awkward or maybe be like upset with some people. I said, but you're going to make a real change. And the same thing, with Erie it's a little bit easier because Erie is pretty small in a good way, but it's funny to see how that works, especially when I lived in Florida. You had to find the right people. And most of the time they were from New England. They had to be from here to get you and how you operate. Everyone else is like, why are you being so nice? What do you want from me? Kind of thing. And
like you and I love New York City, right? There's this whole thing where, there's an argument about Buffalo Bills being the only New York football team. And of course, the Jets and the Giants fans don't like to hear that. And I get it. I understand it. We're Yankees fans, you and I, right? And so we have a love for the city of New York and the Bronx and the whole thing. But there's a different mentality there where when I visited there, I just saw everybody head down. They're buried in their phones and in their work and stuff. And very much everyone is trying to make it. I'm not saying everybody, like this isn't a shot towards, it's just noticing that there's a little bit of a different kind of setting that's kind of painted when you go
I
to
love New York so much. And there are micro communities within that city that remind me a lot of Buffalo, or like you can fit in really well there. Brooklyn's amazing. There's community, like co-working spaces there that have really great collaborative human beings.
Once you settle in, you start to find them, right?
I couldn't say that I wouldn't live there if I had the choice. So I love it.
Awesome city to visit. It just has to be your thing. That has to be your cup of tea, right? Personally, I feel like I am a little bit more of an LA type guy, like let's chill, we get our work done.
I always say I've never been to the West Coast and I won't go until I'm able to stay. I always say if I go to the West Coast, I don't think I'm coming back.
Yeah, one-way ticket for me too. Yeah, exactly. Here's what I love to do. We talked about Convergence, your new co-working space you've been working tireless hours on, and I see what you're doing. I see the before and after and everything. Talk about the progression of about like when this became an idea and how it became the beautiful space that you're about to launch.
Yeah, so we would need more time if you wanted the idea story, but I believe in the power of attraction, right? So attracting the things that you want. I've always been freelancing for the last decade. I was hosting this event. I was asked for a different article if Hamburg needed a co-working space. And I said, yes, that we would, and that it would need to be done correctly. I by no means thought it would be myself. And then a couple people came to me, had some partnerships that happened that allowed me the opportunity to open the space. And that was 2 years ago. So if anyone saw the article about, the pandemic not killing my dreams and all that stuff, it didn't. It made it a lot slower moving, but we had our renovation done in about a month, which was great once I had the capital to do that. And now I'm doing the finishing touches. I keep calling it my 10K stretch. It's like the final 10K. If I get that, I can finish the granite, furnish it, paint. What was the other thing? Granite, paint, carpet and furniture. And then we'll be open. So this time for me is particularly busy hosting this event and trying to open my space by the spring. It's a lot of work, but really I just kind of like New York. I just put my head to the grindstone and just freaking keep working. At this point in my freelance career, I make a decent living. Like I wrote 70,000 words last month. I wrote 20,000 words last week. So it's just, people don't really hear about that part of me anymore because I don't want to market it as much because I am so busy with it, but I want to grow from that freelancer type business into an entrepreneur, which lots of different conversations about that. And you had the same journey. Freelancing is great. And I can always just dip in and out when I want, which is a beautiful thing.
Right.
That's why I host this event, right? It's like why
one of the
I want
greatest
to encourage
perks
people to do it.
is being able to do that. It is tough though. It's crazy, like balance beam you got to be on, right?
People say that freelancing isn't really that stable. And I think it's the most stable job you'll ever have because it'll always be there. Whether you need it per diem, part-time, full-time, it's always there. You can't say that about corporate America.
And you can also choose like how much you want to go in. If there's a month that two of your kids they're both starting new sports or something, I'm making this up. And you're like, maybe I don't take an extra client on this month because I'm going to be doing some extra commuting and this, that, and the other thing. Where then, like the month when September, they're back to school, they're going to be most likely more tied into that. And you're like, yeah, I could take a couple extra clients on this month because I have more school time for them is more work time for you. But in corporate America, they're going to expect you to basically be doing pretty much the same thing all throughout the year.
You have to revolve your life and everything else around that role. And I love that corporate America is changing. There's a lot of good things happening there. I don't want to not mention that. But yeah, it's been a beautiful setup for me in the way that I live. And I was just saying yesterday too, I don't think I could do it any other way. It's hard, but it's worth it for sure. One more thing I wanted to mention about Freelance Buffalo is I'm actually hosting 4 sessions at our host locations before Freelance Buffalo, which is completely free. We can talk about the details later, but it's about how to build a side hustle. So if people are interested in that between now and then, I would love to have them. That'd be super cool.
Yeah, we'll have that all in the show notes as well, so people can check it out, click on it, and attend those events. Here's a scoop. You talked about writing 70,000 words last month and 20,000 words last week. Well, my next question has you in the role of the writer, except we're talking about writing the rest of your life. So you're the author and protagonist in your own life story. No pressure. I save it for the end. We warmed you up a little bit. You get to write the ending, God willing, that you continue to live a long, prosperous life. And you're looking back, you're reflecting on it, and you get to define your legacy. What would that be?
Well, I definitely want to leave something more here. So building the community with the co-working space, I would love to expand and have a couple more locations. But ultimately, I mean, if I'm being super honest, which I usually am, I'm only 30. My kids are younger, but they're not that young. By the time they want nothing to do with me, I'll only be like 40-ish, which is pretty cool. And I want to get the heck out of here. I want to travel. I want to do a lot of things. I spent all of my 20s being a young parent. So I guess in the life after my children, when I'm a quote unquote empty nester at like 40, I think it's going to be really hard for people to keep track of where I am, which it kind of is already now. I try to keep my life pretty private, but other than the stuff I want to show. But after 40, I don't know. I want to write a story that's incredibly unpredictable. I want to be traveling and cooking, in Europe, and then, maybe on a safari. I know we talked about that. I want to just be kind of all over, do the stuff that I didn't get a chance to do. So like you said, yeah, God willing, I get to live much longer. Those are the plans, is to build something that I feel good about, I can make money doing, and then I can kind of take off.
I love it. I do ask that question pretty consistently now. It's almost every episode. I kind of end with that or use that as to round out because it talks about what's next and it kind of leads you into the bigger picture. And a lot of times people's answers are pretty spot on to what I would almost think based on the conversation and the context of who they are in the thing that they're doing. Usually I'm interviewing them and they're an expert in a particular field or fields. And I kind of understand where this is going to go. With you, I love the fact that it's like, no, I don't know. There's going to be so many different things and variations, and I'm going to go do a safari for a couple months, and I'll be in this town, and maybe I'll go back here and there. I love that. I think that one of the things I love about you, Marie, is that you are kind of unpredictable in a sense because you do so many different things, but you're not intentional about, I'm only going to do one thing. You do what you feel is right, and I think that's a really, really cool lesson to take away from this episode is follow your heart.
It's being mission driven. That's similar to what I knew that's what you were going to say. Being mission driven. And as long as you know what your mission is and how you want to impact the world, you can do anything to do that, which is why I like to be sporadic. Gary Vee says it all the time. Try all the crazy stuff now. You can't really do it when you get older. Physically, it's harder. So just try. But I think if anyone can take something away, it's just sit with yourself for a little while and see like what makes you the happiest. What do you love to do? Like you said, I lit up when I talked about a fashion show, which is so weird because I'm like not in that world at all. But that makes me happy. Why do I like it? There's lights, there's fashion, it's cool, it's trendy, it's fun, and people are there. It's like a party. And I'm like, all right, how can I make money doing that? That's what I want to do.
Yeah. I love that. And then the other part of it to me is that there is no timeline on it. We talked about following your heart, going after what you're passionate about, but it doesn't have to be like, okay, I'm going to do this for 40 years. You could be like, I want to set my heart on doing this fashion show in the next 2 years. And then after that, I'm going to spend a lot more time. Maybe I'm growing more than my co-working space. Maybe I want to do like 5 co-working spaces. And then after that, I want to travel and see the world for 10 years. Following your heart doesn't mean that you pick one thing and you just go as far as you can.
Yeah. And if you do, that's awesome. But if you're one of those people that need a lot of different things to keep you fueled and amped up, do that. One thing I guess to tack on to the co-working thing is that I want to be able to establish myself in that space because there are governmental contracts and things like that. Like, the Army is trying to put co-working spaces on their bases for military spouses. That's not something I had when I was married. And if I did, maybe it would have been easier for me to do it. It's about building something that didn't exist for you, right? So resources for freelancers, resources for military spouses. If I could get involved in that, build my credibility up in the co-working realm, become a WMBE and apply for those contracts to help them open in bases across the world, I'm in.
That's so huge. Yeah.
About aligning what you want to do professionally with what you want to do personally, and then just having that kind of take you there.
We just spent 45 minutes unpacking a lot of your story, and I feel like we could go a whole nother 45 minutes and have a different conversation all over again because there's so many different things to talk about. Is there anything that I didn't bring up that you were really excited to talk about today? It could be any topic. Is there something you wanted to get out to the world?
I think we did great. Really, I appreciate our listeners being able to keep up. We're very quick thinkers, like high functioning ADHD or OCD or whatever it is.
I definitely have both of those to some level.
I probably do. I've never been officially diagnosed, but for the way that our brains work, we need it. We need that. So if there's anyone out there that's struggling with something like that, like it's your superpower, man. You just got to learn to work with it. But this has been great. There's not anything that we haven't covered. And I shared some things with you that nobody knows. So that's always fun for a host.
I got the scoop here on Mic'd Up. Marie, Rachelle, thank you so much for being an awesome friend first, and also for inviting me to the Freelance Buffalo and Beyond event. I say event, it's events with an S. There's so many different things. So check out the website, guys. It's going to be hard to follow Marie because she's all, like we said, she is the bouncing ball. She's all over the place. But keep an eye on Convergence if you're local in the area and you're looking for a new co-working space, something fresh and new. It is about to be available for you to book your space, which is really exciting. And I end every episode with this. Now I got the t-shirt. This is the first episode I got the Be Great, Be Grateful t-shirt. I'm usually pointing at the mug, but yeah, this is actually live now. You guys can go ahead, and that's also clickable in the show notes. If you want some of the merch, we have it in black, red, white. We have hoodies. We have a hat that has the BGBG, again, the Be Great, Be Grateful. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. Marie, thank you for being here. I look forward to continuing to grow our friendship and serve our community.
Of course, a lot of fun things. You want to see me or talk to me about anything mentioned here, reach out. I'm pretty much an open book.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Take care.
I'd like to give a huge shout out to everyone for tuning in, especially those who listen all the way to the end to hear this message. Seriously, I appreciate you, and my guests do as well. Giving a quick reminder to subscribe to this show. It's completely free and will allow you to receive notifications when new episodes are released. If you'd like to provide a tip as a gift, you can do so via patreon.com/mic'd up. It's spelled MIKED up. Patreon.com/mic'd up. You can give as little as $1 per month or as much as you'd like. Every dollar is greatly appreciated and completely unexpected. Appreciate your reviews and your messages coming in on social as well. Keep them coming. Your feedback is valuable and absolutely means the world to me. You can check out more episodes and content at mic'duppodcast.com. We're powered by Social Chameleon. You can also follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm the most active, and it's at Mike DiCiccio, MIKEDICIOCCIO. Thank you so much for your continued support. You guys know what to do. Be great and be grateful.